the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 271 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Today, we're going to be talking with Jake. Jake is a life coach, but also real estate investor here in Costa Rica. He's invested here in Costa Rica, also owns a variety of properties up inside the US as well, and also helps people make that pivotal change in their career. Him and I were just discussing that as I actually made a pretty big change in my life in 2022, moving from the travel company across to more of the investment and development side, even though I'm still somewhat attached by the umbilical cord to it. Kind of made that change. But today we're going to be talking to him. He relocated his family from the US here to Costa Rica. He has 11 and 13-year-old daughters, and just kind of getting his experience and advice on that transition, and kind of like why you should not be afraid to do it. So anyway, remember, guys, if you're looking to make an investment here in Costa Rica, we have a variety of, I would say, fractionalized syndication style investments available in Manuel Antonio, which is already kind of coming to an end, that project. We'll finish that project at the end of June, 6 villas in the jungle. Also, we're just finishing a 5-bedroom in Arenal that was fully funded, but we're about to start 6 luxury villas across a ridgeline in La Fortuna, Arenal as well. So that's very, very exciting. We'll be starting construction there in February. So I'm looking very much forward to that. But if you're interested, email us info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Jake. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Richard?
Good. It's always kind of nice but weird when I have someone that we've worked with for many years and was also an investor in my project and now moved down here to Costa Rica, kind of come on my podcast. But I suppose everything comes full circle.
Yeah. Well, happy to be on. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, man. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. Well, the first question I always love to ask, Jake, is just that, a lot of listeners here don't always have perspective of kind of like what's happening here in Costa Rica. We know that there's a lot of volatility in Western markets, and that probably doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. But I mean, what are you seeing happening here in Costa Rica? How would you summarize what's happening here?
Well, I can see it in my own backyard. So we bought in Grecia, which is a free zone, one of the free zones here in Costa Rica, and there's construction happening all over the place. I mean, there's one of my neighbors is a real estate agent here, and he talks about just the amount of investment happening in this area, the amount of money that's being poured into these free zones in the Grecia. Construction left and right. The McDonald's just popped up, and it was in an insane time frame. I couldn't believe it. It's on our route that we take our kids to school.
Yep.
And from the minute that we saw them start to the minute that we saw first customers in that McDonald's, it just blew our minds. It was like 5 or 6 weeks. I just couldn't believe how fast this. So it's really just a story of growth, and we're in probably one of the biggest hotspots in Costa Rica right now in terms of investment. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I think Grecia, San Ramon, everything is moving out there. All the distribution centers are moving out there. All of the biotech and biomedical companies are all moving out there as well, because Costa Rica has a really educated workforce. And I think that's, I think what we're seeing a bit of a transition here in Costa Rica. We used to have like a lot of call centers, a lot of more manual work. But now, because of the education and the opportunities, it's a lot more technical expert work that's kind of happening here. And of course, all of that stuff is looking for free trade zones where they pay, little to no taxes. And it's good for Costa Rica because we get employment, and usually they're very well paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think the workforce here is a great opportunity for many of these big companies, and just the stability that Costa Rica offers is, it's a well-established country with well-established norms, a long history, as opposed to some of the other markets around the world.
Yeah. Well, Jake, you guys you did the big move to Costa Rica. Why did you decide to do that?
A lot of reasons kind of came together at once. First of all, we kind of hit this point in our lives where we just kind of had to decide what's next.
Yep.
And my wife and I kind of sat and looked at each other and like, well, okay, we'll move here, we'll move there, and then maybe someday we can go to Costa Rica and retire and live down there. And then, eventually, after enough kind of tossing around all the various ideas, it kind of hit us. We were like, well, Costa Rica is an option now. There's nothing stopping us from moving down there. We live in we live in an internet connected world. We live in that type of society where Costa Rica is totally an option. We're the same time zone as the U.S., or at least the central U.S., and so that wasn't restricting us. But probably one of the other strongest motivations that we had was that we really believe in intercultural experiences, and living outside of the U.S. in order to understand your own culture and understand where you come from. And we've seen that, we've seen that value firsthand. My wife and I, we were introduced to Central America via El Salvador. We actually spent 2 years in the Peace Corps from 2008 to 2010. And that kind of introduced us to the Spanish language, to the Spanish culture, or to the Central American culture. And then we saw just the value of living in a different culture, really just seeing how other people live their lives, other ways of seeing the world. And we wanted that for us again and for our children. And Costa Rica was just a great in-between in terms of school offerings, just a lot more to offer for the kids, music programs and things like that. So that's what those were probably two of the main drivers, but there's a whole bucket list beneath that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I always say to people, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? You can always go back. Like, it's not that big a deal. But, but I think that once people get down here and they get past those first couple of months, mm-hmm. and they really start understanding the value of like living in Costa Rica, kind of the cleanliness, the food, and like just there's not that much, it doesn't move that fast, unfortunately, except when they're building McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. That was probably why it was so shocking, is because we weren't used to seeing construction move pretty slow here.
Oh yeah, you can tell me about it. But I mean, what would you say the biggest shock or challenge has been to you and your family?
I don't know. I think let's see. Probably, honestly, I expected the transition to be more difficult. It went, I think it shocked us that it went as smoothly as it did, to be honest. We've had our ups and downs. Like, we've had our good days and our bad days. But when I look back on the past year, like, our family handled it very well, and we became closer as a family unit. And so that, to be honest, it wasn't, yes, there's culture shocks. There's obviously good times and bad times, and it's a roller coaster. But the reality is, when you look back on it over the long haul, I think we did pretty well with the transition.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing that jumps out. I mean, the kids have adapted pretty quickly because, I mean, again, it's
I'd say our younger daughter has adapted easier than our older daughter. We have an 11 and a 13-year-old, and the 11-year-old had a smoother transition. Our 13-year-old is trending in the right direction, but it's been more of a battle for her.
I mean, look, I've got a 12 coming on 13-year-old daughter. And I mean, I think we all remember being that age of like, you're trying to identify who you are and like, becoming a teenager, and those years are so important. And then throw another language and culture in there. But, I mean, I'd hope, and certainly for me, I spent a lot of my childhood in France. Of like, looking back, I go, it gave me such a huge opportunity, to just be able to speak a different language and understand different cultures and different ways of doing things. Right.
And that really touches on one of our main goals, which is like, look, the only thing that we know about this world is that change is the only thing that is a certainty. Right. And so, like, if we can get our kids to a point where they can be comfortable with being uncomfortable, like, that's about the only thing that we can be certain of, is to help them learn how to navigate this changing world that we live in. And over the next the change that we've seen in the past 30 years, like I cannot even imagine what we're going to see in the next 40 or 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, in the next 10 years, with just
Right.
how technology is moving and AI, etc. Actually, I think I had an interview this morning where the individual was reading from an AI prompter. Because I started asking some odd questions just because I was like, I think he's reading from an AI prompter. And I started to ask some random questions, and the responses back were very weird. And I was like, he's reading from an AI prompter.
Oh
So
my goodness.
that's a first for me. But yeah, it's going to be changing, and it's the good thing about Costa Rica is I don't think we move at the velocity the Western world does. We still move pretty fast, but we don't move as quickly.
Yeah, and I take value in that, to be honest, because it's one of those things where we can have all these technological advances. We can have, the iPhones, all the crazy AI and stuff like that. But the reality is like the human experience is still what matters most. Right. I think and if you look back in time, like even, going back to ancient cultures, like who's to say that they didn't have a better or more profound human experience than we do today, even though we have all the fancy technology.
Yeah, I mean, I chatted with a friend yesterday. She just got back from a month in India, and she was just like, the simplicity of their lives and how happy they are is beautiful. And I think, and I just saw Australia just ban social media the other day, and I was like, wow, that's a strong move, but probably a good thing. I mean, I want to keep my kids off it as long as I can, which is very difficult to do because they're all on it. But it's just, but what would you say the nicest thing about moving and living here has been?
Well, certainly the weather, but like, we landed in a place in the Central Valley in Grecia where we don't need heat. We don't need air conditioners. We have air conditioners installed, and we rarely ever turn them on. It's just so rare. Probably the nicest thing is just waking up, opening all of our patio doors, and we can hear the river, outside our door. And so you're living in this mix between inside and outside. Like, are you, and so that's kind of that's just one of the greatest feelings. And then on top of that, you've got this 12-12 circadian rhythm where it's 5:30 p.m. more or less, the sun is going down, 5:30 a.m. the next morning, and that doesn't change a whole lot throughout the whole year. So you can really just fall into these rhythms with the sunrise and sunset, and listen to the birds waking you up, that type of stuff.
Well, Jake, wait till you go back in like the summer to North America and it's like 10 o'clock at night and the sun's going down and you're like, oh, it's like 6 o'clock at night here. And then you check your watch, you're like, it's 10. Exactly. Like that happens to me in Europe. So, we
went back in this past July, I think it was for a week or two, and it threw us off big time. And we were just so confused because it was 9-10 p.m. and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm normally, knocked out hard sleeping by this time. And, it does. It throws you off.
Jake, what would be your advice? Because there are a lot of people listening to this that are thinking about, look, I think the biggest thing that a lot of people have is, definitely schooling if they have families or kids. If they don't have kids, I think life's a lot easier. But, and we'll get to the education system in Costa Rica in a minute. But what advice would you have for people thinking of doing the same that you have done?
I think the biggest advice is to take it slow, really do your research. I think a relocation consultant like the service that you guys offer is money incredibly well spent. And then I would say rent in a lot of different places throughout the country. And just try out as much as you can before you really make the leap. And then just make sure that you're going to get through it. But then with that said, I think you also should mentally commit to 2 years. I think the minimum time frame that you can even have before you can even really answer that question is 2 years. Because if you tell yourself, oh, I'm just going to go try it out, the reality is probably, think times are going to get tough, and things, and you're going to have challenges, and you might, if you are not mentally prepared for that 2 year time frame, you're probably going to run back to the US or wherever you came from fairly quickly, because there's stuff that you have to get used to here, and it's difficult to see why people do things the way they do things here, and I think it just takes time to really let that culture absorb.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Like, it's just getting to I mean, even learning back roads here, because, even though Waze will put you somewhere, sometimes it's not always the best way to go, or just where to get certain food here, or how to get certain things done, like open a bank account and pay online bills. Like in the US, it's all very easy. It's usually in your first language as well. Here, it's not. I mean, it's bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And there's there's no shortage of hurdles that will come at you in those first year or two.
I just like to call it a natural filter, Jake, to be honest with you, for people that shouldn't be here, to be honest. That's probably a terrible way to look at it, but like nothing is easy in this country, but I love it because everyone that's here really wants to be here.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And yeah, and I think there is kind of a large crowd of people like fleeing the US right now because they're concerned about the political drama that's taking place. And honestly, I don't know if those people are cut out for it, because like for me and my family, we were looking, like our motivation was to go to Costa Rica, not run away from the US or run away from our country. And it does kind of flip the mentality about what you're doing, and you have to have a strong why you're doing it, and it doesn't always work that well to have a negative why, meaning, you know what I mean? Meaning I don't like what I had over there, so I'm gonna leave. Well, it helps to really be attracted to the country and want to be there.
Well, and this country culturally, politically, and even language is very different than North America. I mean, it's not that, I mean, it's a change for sure. I mean, I'm sure going to El Salvador and living would be probably a little bit more of a change. We are somewhat aligned to the Western world, but like, I think you'd probably be looking at somewhere in Europe if you really wanted to be a little bit more aligned, where stuff's efficient. But then you're in a different time zone on the other side of the world. Like, here, anywhere in 5 hours, you can be flying in North America.
Yeah. And that's true. It does. It seems like the other side of the world, but the reality is you're not that far from the US anytime that you need to run back and get something done, get some business done or whatever.
Well, you have 2 children in the education system here. I mean, I think when families move here, they're always concerned that, like, are the schools good enough? Like, are they like, I mean, how is the system here, Jake?
Yeah, we enrolled our kids into a bilingual school outside of Grecia called Santa Josefina or St. Josephine, and it's been a good fit. They really have done a nice job supporting our kids, learning the Spanish language, being accepting of, or at least helping the other classmates to really just help them get adjusted. I don't know how it would have gone with the public school system. I can only speculate, but with it being a private school, I feel like we did get that extra attention or that extra help. But no, the education has been good. And to be honest, like, I think it goes back to our strongest motivation, which is we are looking for that cultural education just as much as anything else that the school could provide. So for us, like, our goal is, number one, that they pick up a second language, that they learn, that they see, cultural differences and have that real international experience. So that they're definitely hitting our goal in that mark.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those things that maybe you might not understand it right now when you're a kid, but you'll definitely understand it when you're, in your 20s or something. And you'll be like, I'm very thankful for that, So
and I think it's important to build in that bug for adventure, like, early on at a young age, and that's kind of what we wanted our kids to, not be afraid to move across the world, to not be afraid of strangers or like people or cultures that they don't understand, and that's kind of what we're after as well.
Awesome. Well, I know that you have I'm going to change gears here to kind of more investment. I know you have quite a few investment properties up in North America. How would you describe the investment market here in Costa Rica?
I mean, you really have to learn a lot before you should be swinging that bat for a home run. You really got to start small and understand the Costa Rican bureaucracy, understand the Costa Rican culture, and understand how business is done here. So I think Like, whereas in the US, like, it's fairly easy to get lending. You
Yep.
can, if you can come up with 20% down, you can pretty much go to any bank you want, and they'll put something together for you. Here in Costa Rica, lending is much more complicated and much higher interest,
Yep.
expensive. And so, like, when we were looking at where to purchase in Costa Rica, I think a lot of people have these ideas that they're going to house hack, right? You're going to buy a property on the beach or near the beach, and then you're going to have the guest house as your Airbnb. And that's not a bad market, but like, I think you should take a real hard skeptical look at what kind of revenue to expect out of that Airbnb. I think the short-term rental market here is pretty, especially like the 1-2 bedroom market is pretty saturated.
Yep.
Difficult to tap into. It's highly competitive. And we also ran numbers on, okay, what if we just buy, a house not at the beach, but just a house, and then had a 1 or 2 bedroom rental available for long term, right? And those numbers are tough to pencil as well. Like, you really, but at any rate, all this is to say that I think, to be honest, I think you're better off really, if you want to invest in Costa Rica, I think you're better off giving your money to a syndication or an organization like yourself who kind of pools investors together and builds that property that's incredibly desirable, that stands out and above, and hits that market that is a little more difficult for people to find in terms of really that higher end market, because there's just so many properties down here that are just kind of run of the mill properties, but there's not a ton of those really high end properties going after those high end clientele.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the industry I know. So I always say I feel like I'm cheating because I'm developing stuff for I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, we've just finished the 4th villa in Manuel Antonio. We're about to open 5 and 6. And I feel like it's just a hotel with adding more rooms, because as soon as we open it, it just floods with reservations, so
yeah.
I'm just, trying to keep my guys alive by telling them when I'm about to open it so that they know when they need to have it ready by.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can tell from firsthand experience, I've come across a lot of your properties just searching for lodging online, and they stand out. They're just they're a class in their own. They're a class above.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll not keep you any further, Jake, because I know that you're a busy guy. But my last question, which I love to ask, is if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it in a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why?
Oh, I think I would just circle right back to my last answer. And to be honest, like, it's one of those things. You got to find somebody who knows the climate. You have to find, the business climate, meaning you have to find somebody who's been here a long time, who understands how things work here, who understands all the unwritten rules that we don't always know, that are not, there's no guide to these things. You kind of have to experience them and have, go through it firsthand. So, to be honest, I would take that money and give it to an organization like yourself, Richard. I think it would be hard for me to do anything else, because I've run those numbers and I've really thought through the process of doing it on my own and thinking, okay, how am I going to establish my own rental business here? Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And there's just so many hows that, like, by the time you get to the bottom, it's like, why am I doing this all on my own? I think I would just trust somebody else.
I think the thing that people need to understand here is that the industry is driven by tourism. So you need to really understand tourism. And the goal here is you need to drive your average daily rates up way beyond, what is typically in the market, because, and you need to figure out ways to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, if you're just a property management company opening and closing doors, I mean, you're just competing with everybody else. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And the market is really saturated when it comes to that, like that middle of the road property. Like, there's just a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're playing that game where you're trying to get your listing higher on Airbnb and VRBO, and just to try and get your game or your listing in front of people's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's gravy for us. I mean, when it comes in, it comes in, but like our stuff is direct because that's what we've done a lot of, and also through luxury travel companies. So, those luxury travel clients aren't looking on Airbnb and comparing how much where a 3-bedroom should be 600 in Manuel Antonio and we're charging double that. They're not looking at that. They're looking at it going, what's the experience going to be and what are the services available? And is the travel agent that's designing this for me, like, recommending this?
Right.
But that's really what it is. I mean, you're getting a custom suit.
Yeah.
If you're getting a custom suit, you're not looking at on, I don't know, Moss Bros or whatever it is in the US where you're looking at it being like $200. It's like, no, you're paying $2,000, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%.
Well, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the podcast. I'll put all of the contact details in the description down below for anyone that wants to reach out and get to kind of, I suppose, know you a little bit better. But very much appreciate you taking time to chat with us on the podcast.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Richard. I enjoyed it.
No worries. Have a good day.
You too.
Guys, hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Jake. As you can see there, I mean, he's living in Grecia, which is kind of in the Central Valley area of Costa Rica. Very cool climate, very beautiful area, amazing coffee, but probably the fastest growing area in the country at the moment, just because a lot of free trade zones are kind of moving into that area, which of course brings all of the infrastructure that comes with it as well, which is kind of good. It has good roads, great markets, as I said, and great coffee as well. I mean, I really love it. It's kind of rolling hills up there, very cool climate. And it's probably about an hour and a half from the beach and maybe like 40 minutes from the airport. So it's actually a very, very nice destination. But remember, guys, if you're enjoying the podcast, please hit the subscribe button. Please give us thumbs up, 5 stars. Pass the pod to anyone that you think it might be interested to. I appreciate all the support you guys are giving. But I will keep cranking these podcasts out. And again, as I said, I appreciate everyone's support. If you need anything ever, do not hesitate to reach out to us, info@investingcostarica.com. But anyway, appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.